Oh no! RTD refuses to retcon the Retcon. Oh, who could have seen this coming? Well, there were three options for Davies with this. One was to retcon it, undo this. Two was to just ignore it, that was the solution for the 1996 Paul McGann Doctor Who movie that revealed the Doctor was half human. And since they've just completely ignored it, a few little teasing lines here and there, it doesn't really count as addressing it. So that was an option. And the third and the worst possible option was to maintain it and go forward with it. Well, that appears to be the choice he made. Technically, based on what he said, do you think you could just say, nah, he'll probably just ignore it in the shows? Because the best possible outcome of all of this would be that you would get basic Doctor Who adventure stories. And that would go a long way to shoring up the franchise, if you will, such that it is, because it was done. This was the Hail Mary pass of Davies coming in and starting this over. Because a big part of the problem for Doctor Who was beyond just the wokeness, which was a huge problem, and gender swapping and all that sort of thing, was just the stories were terrible. The decline in writing was severe, and this really begins in the decline in viewership, if you go by that scale, was beginning all the way in Matt Smith's era, which by now looks golden, in comparison. And then Capaldi, who, in my opinion, was the best of the new Doctors, but he never really got, just a few moments here and there, but he never really got the stories worthy of his talent. And it continued to decline. And then by the time Jodie's thrown in there for token reasons, and despite interviews where she revealed she didn't really have much respect for the property, her only idea of Doctor Who was David Tennant, and so she did a bad impression of him for her Doctor. But still, it's not really on her. It's on Chibnall. It's on the direction. It's on the writing of those shows, and you barely got anything resembling a Doctor Who episode in that run. And but its worst thing about it was that it was just so bland and bereft of concept and any passion of any sort, and it was just clumsily jumbled around and all that. So even basic Doctor Who adventure stories would go a long way for it. But the problem is severe damage was done in something like Timeless Children. It was one thing to have a female Doctor, which I can see a way that could work. It didn't happen, but it could have. But in the current era and everything, no one was really everybody, you're just doing this for woke points. And that's true. That's really all it was. So in a way, it was more detrimental to the concept in doing it than it was in not doing it at all. And so there you are. But okay, you do that. You do 3 seasons of this, and then you move to the next Doctor, and you move on and all that. And it could have limped along, except for the deterioration that had already happened because of the writing quality. But if you had good writing coming in, and you had actual sci-fi concept and all this stuff, and a return to what Doctor Who always was, it would have a chance. But it's like a great bowl of soup, But there's a rat turd in it. You can't just spoon around it, You got to throw the whole thing out and make a new thing of soup. So you can't leave Last Jedi. Well, this is Last Jedi level damage, and you've seen that across the franchises that have suffered in the current era. And of course, Star Wars: The Last Jedi killed it. And the compounding it is this is unique to Star Wars, is that they had this Beatles reunion moment that they could have used, and they didn't. They found a way to screw that up, which is amazing in and of itself. And they can never go back. They can never fix it. They can never do that. They can recast and all that, but that's a severe wound that I don't know. I suppose it could never go back to being the mega franchise it once was. But had they, like when Mandalorian seemed to be fixing things, had they gone in that direction, they might have shorn up a fairly decent franchise there. But I think that's all over with now. Star Trek just had one awful show after another with Discovery and all that. And then, the hope was Picard would come back and save the franchise. Instead, Picard became the Last Jedi level destruction because that's Patrick Stewart in the role. That's Captain Picard. That's what they did to that character. And then okay, we'll give you a third season that gives you exactly what you want. Well, and that one was just basic, adequate space show. But by comparison, it seemed so much better to so many people, and and just seeing the old cast back together went a long way. But I think it was just too little, too late, so that's there. So the attempt to save Doctor Who, and there had been rumors that Russell T Davies was interested in saving the show, and then suddenly, lo and behold, it was true. And so, and he said, he's going to have full creative control. I never really believed that in total. So one wonders what all of the behind-the-scenes requirements that he had to abide by, and then the rest was all up to him. So I don't know that I really believe the rumor that there was another actor cast for the role. And then BBC said, no, not diverse enough. Supposedly it was this white man. Okay. It's apparently a ginger. And he's not. And then so he went with Ncuti Gatwa. BBC probably would have preferred another woman doing the role, but this is he says, there's a couple of check boxes here, and so he went with that. I don't know that you really needed that he probably would have cast Ncuti anyway. And that's probably what went along, because sometimes Davies is an interesting character in that some of the statements he makes seem to be contradictory. I mean, sometimes he embraces all the nonsense of representation and whatnot, which is just tokenism. And then at the same time, he did these interviews where he was saying, to be constantly obsessed with representation and whatnot, and having to include and have to see yourself and everything and all that, it was a bit absurd. And that's true, so it's back and forth. So who knows what the real deal was and everything to get this launched. But nevertheless, here we are. But the ultimate thing really was the damage done by a plot narrative of retconning Doctor Who entirely. And then your excuse is, I'm not going to retcon that. Unwriting it can't be unwritten. It's his quote, and his excuse is it would be rude. He says, I'm not going to deny what Chibnall wrote, I'm going with it. And that's the worst line of the quote, is that means the likelihood that he would just ignore it would be for the best. Doesn't sound like it with that. He says, it's absolutely fine. No, it's not. It's canon as long as you keep it as canon. It happened. Yeah, it did. It was transmitted. Yeah, that's true. It did. You cannot unwrite things. Yes, you can, because that's what Timeless Children did. Again, it was in the plural, too. They said the Doctor was the timeless child. The timeless children. Do they mean, the timeless children? Well, that's all the incarnations of the Doctor. When Tecteun tortured this child over and over again, killing the kid to try to figure out regeneration. Yeah, they did that on a Doctor Who show. Anyway, no, you can unwrite it. And that's absurd. But he says to unwrite it would be absolutely rude to a great colleague and a lovely friend. So I guess that explains it, why it's okay to ignore Paul McGann's half-human doctor deal because none of them were lovely friends and colleagues. Hey, it's before his time, you know. So just ignore that. The best outcome would have been retconning it or explaining it better and revealing that it wasn't true and restoring the Doctor's actual story. Because, I mean, he says, yes, there was mystery and all of that, but he was always a Time Lord. He was always from Gallifrey. And William Hartnell was the first, you know. I think I've always suspected that Moffat was making an attempt to avoid something like this with Twice Upon a Time, where the crux of the plot was you had the first Doctor who was approaching regeneration and was scared of it. Why would he be scared of it? Because he'd never done it before. And then the 12th Doctor, who's so depressed and broken, doesn't want to keep living on as other people. You know, that, you know, the line sort of paraphrased there. And the two come into conflict, and the Doctor's trying to explain to the first Doctor, you know, says, well, yeah, but there was so much good you did, and all this, you know, and all that kind of thing. And he says, well, why aren't you allowing that to happen in the future? And he, oh, yeah. So that was the point of it. You know, yeah, a lot of stupid in it and everything. It's unfortunate, but so first Doctor goes back to his time and regenerates into the second Doctor, and then unfortunately, 12th Doctor regenerates into Jodie. So, oh boy, yeah, thanks, first Doctor. But anyway, that was, but it would suggest in that, you know, and I take it that is the true story, that this was the first time the Doctor regenerated, and it frightened him, and then he did it. But Timeless John, oh, well, they erased his memory, he doesn't remember. And the Timeless Children's Story is a terrible story. It's not even a story, it's just stating stuff. Hey, look, this happened, and then moving on. It doesn't go anywhere, doesn't really do anything. You know, say, oh, Davies can write it a way that's better, but isn't that? But it would be rude, wouldn't it? You know, this is stupid. And for the tokenizing stuff, it did in there because, well, you know, everybody's represented in these brief, with no dialogue, people or children being thrown into the regeneration cycle to say these were all versions of the Doctor and all that. And so, yay, and that's what they did. Not to mention the disrespect to Joe Martin's Doctor they did, which should have been a future Doctor. You know, that's the only way that works. But now, oh no, there was Doctors all over the place, and the idiocy of that, and that, oh, so she was an earlier Doctor that no one knew about. She flees Gallifrey. She, and her TARDIS somehow turns into a police call box and gets stuck that way. And then I guess she gets captured later on, brought back to Gallifrey, mind wiped, put back into Time Lord robes, and then eventually gets the anxiety to want to leave. So I guess, I don't know, her or some other incarnation of her regenerated into Hartnell, and then got mind wiped, so he doesn't remember he had done that before. And then he steals the TARDIS, and then lo and behold, it gets stuck as a police call box. I mean, what are the odds? It's like, oh, well, they did that so they'd always recognize the Doctor's TARDIS, maybe. Yeah, they didn't even think that. So, it's just stupid. You know, and lazily done and all that. But no, we got to keep it because it would be rude. Yeah. So, probably would have been better to never mention this. And then you could have gone with just ignoring it. But this right here probably cost them quite a few views. Maybe a lot. I'm sure a lot will show up for the specials. But, and if you delve into solidifying this thing, plus any other woke stuff you want to throw in there, it's done. So, it was a mistake. You really only two options: retcon it or just ignore it. and you went with the third option, the worst option. So that's unfortunate.